Hello and welcome everyone to the Vacuumlabs AI in Banking webinar. My name is Marcel Klimo. I'm the head of AI at Vacuumlabs, and I am very pleased to be joined here today by Dalibor Glaich, the director of engineering at Kiwi. Welcome, Dalibor.
Thanks, Marcel, and hi everyone.
Before we get started, let me sort of just tell you how it's going to go today. So first, we're going to have a bit of a chit-chat with Dalibor about where he sees AI going and where we are. And then we're going to move to the presentation. And at the end, we're going to have a little spot for Q&A. And if there are any questions immediately after speaking with Dalibor, we can also do that with a few questions if any pop up. So some of you might be surprised. Okay, so why is Dalibor here when Kiwi isn't a bank and we're doing AI in banking? Well, I have a very good explanation for this. Usually, from our experience, banks and financial services companies lag behind in terms of technology innovation. And it's really the companies that are really close to customers, that are selling daily, that have to innovate immediately as new technologies emerge. And that's why I'm very pleased to have Dalibor, who's working with Kiwi, and Kiwi has been our client for years, doing many different things. So first of all, Dalibor, can you just introduce yourself and Kiwi itself for those who don't have an idea of what Kiwi is?
Absolutely, very happy to. So, as you mentioned, my name is Dalibor, looking after engineering in particular areas at Kiwi, which is customer support systems and search backend, different parts of the org. Kiwi is really your one-stop shop for getting the tickets for airline travel, and we have been revolutionizing the way how we supported the travelers around the world, especially through features like virtual interlining, where we connect the flights that would normally not be connected, and we offer such opportunity to travelers that are not there out of the box. But I'll not do this. I'll not turn this into marketing pitch. Just to give you an idea what Kiwi do, one thing is probably enough, and we can jump straight to the topics.
Perfect. Well, as you said, sort of Kiwi deals with a lot of customers. It's a one-stop shop. So there's a lot of things that they do that they need to do when they're booking a flight. And there's lots of problems that can emerge when all that is happening because the world is complex. And over the past 2 years, we've seen, the term AI become very popular. It's been mostly due to ChatGPT and the technologies around it. But how are you sort of seeing, both from the perspective of Kiwi, but also in general, how are you seeing AI or the modern iteration of AI changing, and what sort of trends are you following?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I don't think AI is something totally new to anyone who has been in IT industry for a while. It's just the speed and pace that AI gathered really over the last couple of years that everyone has seen, and practicality of that use that we can start leveraging. So I think from any company that has got customers and products, you will hear that there is a huge demand for predictive analytics, for example, or personalization. These are areas that have been really at the forefront of even our focus for many, many years. Now, I think it's pretty clear that knowing what's hot and what's not is something that really companies want to know in any industry, be it e-commerce or services. And this is what we have been really focusing on over the last couple of years as a company, also seeing the trends being really available for personalization and increased, and you could call it even hyper-personalization recently. That's something we have been looking into. And my favorite topic is really customer support. We'll get there. But for now, let me just stay for a second at the personalization. Knowing what recommendations you can get rather than just letting customers scrolling through. We have seen it all with other famous e-commerce websites. But I think anyone can do it now. And with a reasonable amount of data that are available in CRM systems or similar, that is an opportunity for any company or an e-commerce company to leverage. Now, just imagine what quantum computing would do with personalization and AI, like much faster prediction of a customer might want to see, even connecting then, I'm going very futuristic now, to some Neuralink type of device that actually reads your sentiment, reads your affinity, if course, you would want that to be connected to. That allows then personalization to really offer you on a very personal level things that you would have to search for or try to gather. So that's one area. I think that's pretty clear, and any e-commerce company would agree. Then a huge opportunity on customer support. We are super excited to see how we could elevate customer support, or how we can think about it differently from deterministic chatbots that was a thing many years ago, to simple knowledge-based chatbots that have had limited ability to help the customers, to now what we call like data-driven chatbots that are connected to customer information, to products, to inventory, and are able to really offer something real-time, 24/7, without hesitation, and with special focus on also alignment with the customer through empathy, through conversational AI that allows really a great level of conversation. So I think all these areas are very relevant, and we have been also following those trends very closely, and are surfing on that wave as much as we can to really get the benefits out there for the customers. I'll pause here because I could talk forever, but maybe let's turn this more into a conversation and have more topics to come.
What I'm hearing is there's almost two different layers or two different types of AI today. Like in the past few years, most people came across AI only in the context of what used to be called machine learning, or that's what most media called it. But now we have this new era, which feels much more like talking to a human as opposed to talking to a bot, something that just responds to very basic questions and doesn't actually have any agency in and of themselves. And I think that's a really big shift in customer service, where you're not just having a knowledge base in the process and looking like a chatbot, but you actually have the ability to have the AI itself make actions, do actions, and resolve things. Is that something you've been looking into, or is there anything you can share publicly in terms of how you're seeing sort of agency in terms of customer support?
Absolutely. I mean, if anyone would use the Kiwi app, there is a section for support. You would go through some initial exploration of the topics you want to talk about. That's where we are able to serve the customers already using AI, and that's basically also linked to our knowledge base, process knowledge base, and all the guidance and if you like, process descriptions that we have for human agents. So AI would use exactly the same and follow the same processes, but with that benefit of really speedy access to all the data that we have related to case, in our case, for example, booking, but could be a product in e-commerce world, and really offer the relevant information. What you really need as a customer is to have relevant response, not really a long conversations about explaining what situation you are in, contextual and to the point. Then, of course, you can then elevate this. Companies might decide to go more with upsell, cross-sell opportunities whilst there is a conversation with the customers. That's totally fine based on the commercial model. But what we said in our case is, let's actually have this virtual assistant to be a good servant or a friend, depending how we want to frame it for the customers. There's a lot of experiences that customers have had with very quickly implemented chatbots based on the knowledge base that are not so useful. And I understand, because it's like an evolution. If you want to put chatbot in, connect to knowledge base, it's not great. And then it potentially makes customers think, okay, I don't want to talk to a chatbot anymore. I want to talk to a human. But this is something we are trying to really get right, and not to simplify things. So we only release the areas of support for the chatbot when it makes sense, when it's really high quality. We measure the feedback. So I think this is what's important, really, that you don't just use technology for its sake, but only where the customer benefits, and obviously everyone then benefits from that.
Very good. And finally, your head of engineering. So obviously you're dealing with large teams that are now being disrupted by the world of AI. How are you changing the way you think, how you problem solve, how you write code? Because this is going to also be super relevant for the banking industry, where there's obviously a lot of code, a lot of legacy code, a lot of engineers that need to be managing all of that. How are you sort of approaching problem solving and coding these days?
Yeah, it's been a great ride. I have to say, this was one of the most fun periods of time when I've been in IT and in the engineering industry in general. So the teams are super hungry to see how they can efficiently use all the solutions. So that's coming through like accelerated innovation, rapid prototyping. So any type of A/B tests or any type of prototype you want to throw out there, of course, AI can help you to write it. We know that the quality is still debatable. That's why we wouldn't put it out as a production thing, and no one should really without proper vetting. But as a quick prototype for a small A/B test, something that is really done very quickly together to verify a hypothesis, I think that's perfectly usable. You have to go through some checks and accounting around how good quality that code is, especially for production use, but as a quick way to win a customer by maybe providing a feature that no one else has, and then building on that is brilliant. Also, automated and intelligent debugging, right? We have spent, anyone in engineering has spent nights going through the code trying to find that bug. If I can do a quick scan through the code, and the teams certainly do that, and find 80%, the golden rule, in 20% of time, that's such a big helper. And I'm not claiming, and no one should, that it will 100% resolve all the problems, and I think everyone is quite realistic in that. But just that speed you can get by applying those principles is amazing. Then knowledge sharing, collaboration. We have had many great developers in the teams that have been domain experts, knew everything. Now, sharing that knowledge through collaboration is an obvious way to it. Excuse me. But then you have also a way how to share it through describe code with additional labels and additional explanation. You can ask AI to explain how this code works and why it was written this way, and it's amazing how quickly you can get to learn something. And I should maybe mention also one more thing, which is the data-driven decision making. Right? You also have things like prediction based on the data that can help the developers to really focus on the right features. So all these things we have been trying to introduce. I'm not claiming that it was my victory there. I think there is a lot of engineering leads in our organization that are even further away with how they apply these principles. We are starting to have collaboration forums where engineers get together and discuss what to best use. But I would really recommend to jump on that train very quickly. Nothing is faster than experimenting with these new features and approaches, and one can learn so much from it, even though it might not be then used fully. But at least it gives the direction in which the things go. So that's one side. If I may, for maybe 2 more minutes, because there is also I wouldn't say dark side, but let's say gray side of things, where any use of AI, especially in financial organizations, and I worked in Barclays before, and it was before AI, so I remember the times when we really had to go through very rigorous, and I think it's still happening in any banking industry, very rigorous vetting of the solutions, even before something went to production, of course, but also for auditing purposes. So with the introduction of AI, I would definitely recommend looking into things like explainability or transparency. Especially, it's a really nice area called explainable AI, which has been coined maybe 20 years ago already. But this is about describing how the AI thinks and why it selected why it chose certain decisions. And it's really good to look into that in more detail for everyone, how the decisions that were made can be reasoned. And if there are some biases, if there are some things that shouldn't have been used by models, I would definitely say for big processes or for big decision makings based on rules, it's also important to see how the AI achieved or reached the conclusion. So there are ways and techniques through advanced prompting. You can ask for reasoning. You can ask for more insights. You can explicitly ask, I don't know, ChatGPT or anything else to explain your chain of thoughts, how they arrived to that result. So if you write your next prompt, add that line there and ask why it thinks that certain advice is in such way. I think there are also tools like attention visualization tooling. I think OpenAI API offers something like that. You can get to token level probabilities. I think you can also see some level how they generated response, for example. So definitely something useful to look into. I don't want to labor on this, but I think for banking industry, especially, or anything financial, I would be extra cautious and use these features that are already out there.
Well, thank you, Dalibor. For those who joined us a little later, Dalibor is the head of engineering at Kiwi, and we had this as a bit of an introduction to sort of where we stand with AI and sort of where they see things. As a reminder, all of this will be recorded. All the slides that I'll be going through in a moment will be shared with you. And there'll also be a white paper after this summarizing all of this. So if you didn't take notes, don't worry, you can always go back. Once again, Dalibor, thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any questions for Dalibor, please put them into the chat. There's going to be an option to answer those at the end of the webinar. So we'll now move on to the presentation part. Where I'll sort of run you through both our experiences at Vacuumlabs, but also things that we're seeing in the market in terms of where AI is being used and implemented within banking, but also financial services in general. So once again, thank you, Dalibor, and I'll move on to the presentation itself.
It was a pleasure, Marcel, and I will stay here and I'll be very happy to answer the questions afterwards. I'm also keen to learn something new in the banking industry, so I'll be observing now and maybe asking you some questions as well at the end.
Wonderful. All right. So hopefully everything is going through. It looks like it is. So AI and banking. As I said, my name is Marcel Klimo, and I'm the head of AI over at Vacuumlabs, where we've existed for over a decade as a company focused on fintech and banking. And over the past 2 years, we've had lots of questions around where does AI fit into the entire picture? How does it work? Can it work for us? Is it too risky? And this is my attempt to answer this question to the best of my ability. So we have an agenda. I'll run through all of these. Obviously, we don't have time to go deep into each topic. I'll give you a few examples, sort of where AI is being used today and how it's being successful at that. However, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific cases that you're interested in, or just put them into the questions. So where do we stand right now? Why AI and why now in banking? Well, first of all, Dalibor already touched on it, but I want to really clarify that there's really still a bit of a divide in terms of what we actually call AI. Today, most people know it as ChatGPT and large language models, but we also have the older strain or the precursor or the ancestor of large language models, which is machine learning. This means that there are some use cases which are solved through large language models like ChatGPT and OpenAI's technology and Google's technology and all of their competitors, which are growing exponentially and super fast. But there's also solutions for where you might want to build your own custom model to either predict something or to find out information that you as a human might not be able to. And it's really blowing up in every single industry, and surprisingly, even in financial services, the adoption is really, really high. So we're expecting massive implementations across many different banks. Unfortunately, a lot of this is very surface level for now, because every bank, every financial institution is trying to figure out how it fits into their strategy and how exactly they can and will implement it. But on a fundamental level, we're going to be seeing trillions being spent and trillions being saved by these adoptions. And some of our clients have already been saying that their ROIs are within a year in terms of investing into something and then seeing the outcomes. So it's really out there, and it's really possible now to start using either language models or traditional machine learning to really transform your bank, your fintech, your financial institution in many different ways. Let's go move on to the first topic. So let's talk about fraud detection. Obviously, every bank, that's one of the biggest worries, whether their customers will lose money, whether their customers will fall for scams or frauds, which are now very easy to implement by people using AI. So this is an active threat for many different banks and financial institutions where businesses, based on the research I've done, it's up to 3.5 trillion that businesses worldwide lose to fraud. So it is in very big interest of banks to help those businesses and regular people prevent fraud from happening. Unfortunately, most of the systems, as they've been designed, are usually rules-based, which means that it's fairly likely that you're going to get a lot of false positives, false alarms, and hence bad customer experience, a lot of time spent investigating things that aren't really a problem, but also not being able to detect those that rules-based systems aren't able to detect. So what is now possible, or what is becoming possible through a combination of machine learning and large language models, is actually going through the mass amounts of false positives and actually identifying those that aren't really a problem. And this could really save a lot of time. Obviously, a lot of back office time, a lot of frustration from customers. And we're going to be seeing more and more of this. IBM has been reporting that AI will be is estimated to cut those false declines by up to 80%. And MasterCard's AI have been showing cases where they are able to decrease those by up to 50%. Every bank will need to choose their own journey of how they do this, how they implement it. There are now solutions out there on the market, but as it always happens, it's very complicated to change existing systems, whether that's a rules-based system or any system they have in place. So my big encouragement is really to have a look at where your pain points are. Where are you seeing these false declines? Where are you seeing things going through that shouldn't have gone through? And looking at whether there are solutions, but either via companies like ourselves or others that can help you identify those and eliminate them. Also, it's important to mention that you're going to probably see a lot more fraud happening through various social engineering, deep fakes, and people replicating their videos of themselves or audio of themselves and trying to get into customers' accounts. And for that, it is a difficult time because even the systems that are designed to prevent some of this can be fooled by the latest deepfake and AI generative technology. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that, and we're very much moving into a chaotic world where fraud will be a lot more elaborate than it ever was before. There are many cases out there where either banks like the Royal Bank of Scotland or PayPal or Danske Bank or many others have reported that by just implementing a few new filters, either for false positives or for more elaborate fraud, they're saving millions and billions for their customers and obviously for themselves. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. But my biggest warning is definitely checking out what is now possible in terms of faking identity, faking authentication, because this is going to be an ongoing problem and it's only going to get worse exponentially as the technology improves really, really fast. AI in loan decisioning. So obviously one of the key roles that a bank provides for people is providing loans, providing access to credit for those who need it at that time, whether it's buying a house or buying something that they need immediately. And for a long time in banking, there's always been this group of credit invisibles, people who might be credit worthy, but just weren't able to have that history for whatever reason. This is a massive problem in the United States, but also in Europe, especially with people who are immigrants or people who are from minorities. We in fact worked on one proposition that was attempting to fix that problem, which was daylight for the LGBTQ community. They unfortunately no longer exist because their cost structure just wasn't able to support the business model. However, big banks are now picking up and are realizing that there's massive amounts of people who they could serve, but previously it was just too complicated to assess them because all they could really rely was on some credit score in that particular country or some arbitrary rules-based systems. So by having AI introduced into this model, whether it's through machine learning or LLMs, we can start having a look at more granular information about people. We can have a look at where they live, how much they make, review their transactions, and build up a history that is more complex than a couple of rules, which were designed at a time where you just couldn't process those amounts of data. And I think a great example of this is a company called Upstart, where they take up to 1,000 data points about the user and hence can serve even those customers who previously weren't able to get credit. You're going to be seeing more and more of this as people move around the world, as various diasporas happen. You were going to see a lot of this movement, and giving those people access to credit will be very important because it will help them grow in that new location. Or people who have been underrepresented for a long time, this is going to be an issue. So I guess the big recommendation from me is start having a look at how you're approving things and looking at where a lot of people are analyzing a lot of information. And there are now tools and abilities for companies to use either large language models or machine learning to improve this significantly. Of course, I understand it's going to be complicated, but there might be a massive target audience which you haven't even thought of yet, just because you are stuck in your rules-based world. And I'll keep coming back to that. The world of rules-based decision-making will be shifting significantly. Robo-advisors. So what are robo-advisors? There's multiple sort of generations of robo-advisors in terms of managing your investments, your wealth growth. And we've seen many players sort of jump the market over the past few years. Currently, sort of the projected global assets for robo-advice is at about 4.6 trillion by 2027, which grew from about 187 billion in 2017. So we're going to see a lot more of this. People are somewhat hesitant to guess what's going to work, and they're somewhat skeptical of managed funds purely by humans. So they're looking at alternatives where they can make less mistakes and make more money over time. This seems fairly obvious, but in the past, these systems were fairly simple, based on very simple rules. They might have had a nice marketing picture, like here, where there's a robot doing your things, but it was a fairly simple system that didn't really do much other than work off some simple rules. The next generation of robo-advisors will be significantly smarter in that they will not only take into account rules that were predefined for them, but they will also take into account you as a person. It will take into account various minor movements in markets and be able to then predict better outcomes. And we're already seeing that as, the first movers in this market, like Betterment and Wealthfront, have already seen sort of measured outperformance of DIY investors significantly. But we're also going to be seeing incumbents and large banks, large wealth management institutions using more and more of robo-advisors as opposed to relying on humans to do this. I'm still surprised how much Excel and how much regular tables are used by wealth management companies these days, this is going to change significantly. Market pressures will push everyone to be using AI automation and robo-advisories significantly more than ever before. And this is a massive growth opportunity for many banks where if they do this right, people will come. AI-powered personal finance. Obviously, all of us like to believe that we manage our personal finances well and that we can make decisions that benefit us. Unfortunately, those who end the month at approximately the same amount as where they started with a very small accumulation of growth, they're often stuck in a loop. They don't know how to get out of it, and what they're gradually expecting out of their banks and out of the fintechs that they're using for their life is some sort of help, some way to get out of that spiral. And this is a massive, massive industry. A couple of years ago, in fact, before this massive boom of LLMs, we already saw companies or banks like Bank of America implement Erica, which was a fairly simple chatbot. It wasn't overly complex. It was just basically trying to understand the users and then give them more information about the types of interactions that are happening. But this will soon not be enough. This was still fairly simple. This was rules-based, and it didn't really have the cool factor that we're now seeing with ChatGPT and all of the new LLM tools out there. So I think where we're going to be moving towards, and we began that journey with one of our clients, Galgal in India, a few years ago, where it becomes less about just giving you a nice graph that shows you, oh, you spent this much at the restaurant, you spent this much here, hit this much there. It's much more about being proactive, about showing the customer or client where they could be saving money, where they're overspending, and also giving them a feeling of not being patronized. This is where LLMs can be really useful. They can communicate in very emotive, empathetic ways. They can talk to you in ways that a previous chatbot just wasn't able to, because they were pre-programmed to just answer simple questions. We're going to see this change all across the industry. But one thing to keep in mind, these aren't infallible. These chatbots and these recommendations will have issues. They will have problems. And this is why many banks have even begun the journey to have these sorts of personalized chatbots and then have gone back. We've seen multiple of these across the industry. So my big recommendation is really to start small, but give the user a feeling of empowerment. Give them features which let them understand themselves better, understand their financial wellness better, and ideally help them start automated savings and start growing that sort of pile for the future in a way that doesn't feel forceful. And again, I'll keep saying this, LLMs are really, if you prompt them well, if you program them well for the end user, they have the massive power to not feel patronizing, not feel like you're just being shown a graph, but rather actually explain your situation, explain what's happening, and give it to you in a way that just feels more natural. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of that in the next few years as banks and financial institutions start implementing various features into their applications. AI and blockchain. So over the past few years again, and this is more of a decade or two now, everyone's been talking and hearing about crypto and about how that's going to be the next way to spend the money. And in many ways, it has already happened. There are now places in the world where you can pay with things like Bitcoin or Ethereum. but there's a completely different side to this thing. I won't talk about you as a bank or you as a financial institution providing crypto as part of your product. I'd rather talk about how blockchain and the underlying technology can transform how you reconcile everything that's happening within your bank, and then using AI to create a unified data set. So we as Vacuumlabs have worked with crypto from almost the very beginning, and up until this day, the underlying technology has remained very stable in that it's been mostly used for either the crypto side of the business or the more ETF and marketplaces. But now even more stable financial institutions are starting to realize that we don't have to talk about the crypto part of this whole thing. We can talk about blockchain as a system of having a record of what has happened that is not changing through time, and that isn't just that can be rewritten or modified or changed at any point in time. So hence, what we're now seeing in the industry is things like Swift, UBS, and Euroclear are partnering with blockchain companies like Chainlink to help them reconcile all of the various pieces of manual data that they're had to previously somehow mash together and create problems for themselves because you had duplicate transactions, you had errors of many different ways. Now with AI, we can implement multiple LLMs to do a check through everything that's happening on a blockchain, all the transactions that are happening, and do a reconciliation, which just wasn't possible before. It required too many rules to be written for it to work. So, of course, we can always talk about how banks could provide crypto facilities and solve crypto fraud problems. But I encourage you, as you're listening to this, have a look at how blockchain could be used in combination with AI to help you make sense of everything that's happening within the bank and all the transactions that are happening. And then from there, going to a place where you are doing less manual work and less rules creation. Finally, opportunities and challenges of AI. So we're going to see lots of new products being built around the sort of LLM paradigm. Obviously, Dalibor mentioned customer support changing significantly. You now not only having a chatbot just to answer simple questions like, where do I open an account, or where can I see the balance of my mortgage, but they can actually help you directly with solving problems within applications. They can do things on your behalf, and they can do things that they previously wouldn't have understood because everything was based on that sort of old school technology of, press 1 to do X, press 2 to do Y. Those chatbots are now dead, and we now have the new generation of agentic chatbots, which are significantly more powerful and can replace not only people on the customer support side, but they can also speed up processes, and they can be more error prone than ever before. That's why we're going to see a lot of efficiency and cost savings across banks, fintechs, and others as they realize that a lot of the stuff that has now been done manually by customer support agents can now be done by LLMs on the same level as human agents. And I want to stress that humans are not infallible. Technology is not infallible, but with LLMs, you can now do things that only humans could do 3 or 4 years ago. This is a massive shift that's going to really redefine how we think of a person's role within a company, and the amount of personalization that is now possible on a 24-hour basis, 24/7 basis for end customers is just going to be crazy. And I have no other way of describing it, because we have essentially unleashed a completely new technology which has not existed before. And I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't see it with my own eyes, that this is actually as good or better than human agents for many, many, many different scenarios. Many of you are now thinking, yes, but there's regulatory compliance that we need to keep in mind. We need to have transparency in place. We need to do auditing of everything that's happening. But as Dalibor mentioned, the technology is now there. We can be auditing everything that's happening with these LLMs. We can be breaking down their entire process and seeing how things are working inside of it, and understanding it deeply. Of course, we won't see in the underlying black box, but you really don't see into the underlying black box of your employees' minds either. So, of course, some laws will need to change. There still will need to be human safeguards for very sensitive customer data. However, a lot of roles will be redefined in many, many different industries. The jury is still out on bias and ethical issues. So, historically, there have been concerns and even lawsuits around robotic or AI systems having some sort of bias that humans probably wouldn't have had. And we're going to keep having that discussion. We're going to keep having those issues, but the competition, the cost implications of keeping on massive staffs of people will be a big question to answer, and it's not going to be easy. But you need to be aware that things are changing, and they're changing faster than ever before in terms of technology. So the future outlook. I don't mean for all of this to sound grim and negative and like, oh my God, what's happening? How are we going to survive? In these early phases, AI is mostly an augmentation. Yes, some roles will disappear. Yes, some jobs will not exist in a few years. These will be in places where you previously would not have expected it. This is a lot of knowledge work, a lot of various roles that have previously required humans, because the understanding of fuzzy text, fuzzy data was required to be processed by humans. But today, these new LLMs can look at various data sets, various information, reprocess it, reformat it, change it to whatever you need. And they're becoming better and better and better at this every month. Last year, if you asked me, I would have been saying, oh, it's not that great for this and this use case. But every month, I'm seeing a new use case being now covered by some new AI model. So keep that in mind looking forward. Where are the places within your bank or within your financial institution where the role can be automated because your competition will be doing the same? And it's usually going to be roles where it's semi-manual, semi-routine, and involves, I'll put it very bluntly, if the role requires a lot of copy pasting, that role will soon disappear because it can now be automated with LLMs. That doesn't mean that the overall composition of a bank or a financial institution will be significantly reduced. Just like when ATMs were introduced, teller roles didn't disappear completely. They were just reshifted. They were changed to a different type of role, although there are roles that will definitely disappear, and these agents will be able to do the roles that previously were only possible by humans. Just to give you an idea of sort of where all of this could be going and where we're experimenting a lot within Vacuumlabs and with our clients, A big area is long-term memory. Currently, AI agents and AI isn't that great at memorizing what you've told it in the past. And having the ability of LLM chatbots to have long-term memory and long-term history of what you as an individual have done, so that it can then recommend products to you, recommend services to you, or just give you useful personal financial and financial health advice. This is very difficult, and we've been experimenting a lot with this, and we made a couple interesting breakthroughs, which if you're interested in this topic, I'm really happy to just talk because it's fascinating, and we even modeled it around some research on how our own brains work. So very interesting area, long-term memory. Analyzing risks in banks. There's a lot of analysts within banks doing jobs that could now be easily replicated. And what we're now trying to figure out is to what level, in which area, and what types of data require an LLM, and where we still need a more traditional machine learning model. So if you're sort of struggling with that piece, I would err more towards the side of using a more traditional machine learning model as opposed to using LLMs, because LLMs really aren't that great at massive amounts of data. But again, happy to have a chat about this because this is a fascinating topic. Another area we've been exploring a lot is predicting future viewership of media content, so that then ads can be served more appropriately. This isn't a fintech topic, but it again comes down to if you have massive amounts of data, LLMs might not actually be your best approach. And I'm not here to evangelize LLMs. You might need to go the more traditional route and build your own custom model that helps you process that data. You're probably doing some of that already, but with the power of LLMs, you could be processing a lot more of that data because a lot of that fuzziness can be removed. So again, if this is interesting to you, I'm very happy to talk about it and just chat. And finally, there's other areas where a lot of financial data is flowing, and they take a lot of information from banks and government registries. And that's auditing, whether that's company mergers, acquisitions, or many other things where auditors are involved. We're now looking at how we can streamline that process. And looks like the initial findings are that there will be a lot less junior analysts because the senior analysts now have superpowers because they can do a lot more in a lot less time. So I really sort of encourage you to, as you were here today, as you now go back to your own business, try to think about where you have a lot of people doing a lot of things. They're probably bored, but they're there doing things. Maybe it's time to see if an LLM can either replace them or give them superpowers. One or the other. At first, augment. Then if you figure out, you can sort of modify the team, change the team so that it fits your case. Finally, I wanted to sort of invite you sort of into our thinking. Right now, anytime we're starting to build a new project, we're thinking about three parts. We're thinking about the app itself, but we're also thinking about the AI tooling of how that application will be using AI, whether that's the LLM piece, whether that's the more traditional machine learning piece. And then we're also looking at things like onboarding, because fraud will be a massive, massive problem if it's not addressed and if you can't verify your customers. This comes back to now deep fakes and generative AI being able to fake things a lot better than ever before. So if you're endeavoring on a new product, a new proposition, definitely have an AI strategy now, and have a onboarding and verification strategy that will prevent users from getting in, especially if you have very sensitive financial data. I can't stress enough how easy it will be to fake your identity in the next few years. A few years ago, it took many different pictures to do a proper fake of you moving and looking like a real human being. Today, it takes like 1 or 2 pictures and you can get very, very convincing. So these are the sort of 3 key components for me. It's not just about the app and how the app is built, but there needs to be an AI technology and an AI strategy behind everything you're building today. And there needs to be a strategy on preventing fraud by verification of end users. In our case, we built a framework for this. If you're interested, let's talk. But if you just walk away with the fact that you really need an AI strategy, because you will be overrun by your competitors. And if you only take one thing away from today, it's this. The world as we have known it over the past 20 years has been hugely deterministic. Everything we've done, every technology that we've built has been deterministic. You could predict what it would do, and assuming it didn't have bugs, it worked the same way every single time. Now, with LLMs, and the various different technologies emerging out of that wave, we're going to be seeing a lot of chaos. Things will be possible that were never possible before. Fraud will be possible that was never possible before. Predicting of things will be a lot easier in many ways, especially in terms of predicting text, predicting audio, predicting video outputs, generating stuff. We are moving into a very chaotic world, and if you don't have a strategy of building these sorts of massive worker bee systems that work on your behalf, you will be steamrolled by your competition. So again, my name is Marcel Klimo. This was really just sort of covering the very top of where AI is now being used in banking, and I already see that there are 2 questions here. 2 or 3 questions that have come up, so let's answer them. Let's start with L. You mentioned how AI can help with fraud detection. Do you think it might happen in the future that AI-powered fraud detection becomes so good that cybercriminals shift their focus to attacking AI systems instead? I think that's already happening in many ways. They're already attacking AI systems because a vast majority of cybersecurity has some level of autonomous protection. How do you look at it, Dalibor?
I needed to unmute myself. Yes, so I think you're right. I think there are already also countermeasurements available, so that signifies there is a need for them, and those products already are available to help to avoid, for example, things like LLM injection. So I think that this is already a reality, the same way as you have antivirus on your PC, perhaps if you use. Then similarly, there are anti-injection systems that prevent from malformed requests getting through your, let's say, chatbot, for example. So that's one level. I think that's the simpler one. I think there will be definitely more sophisticated ones coming up. But it needs to be seen that this is a predictable thing that also engineers can tackle back. So if there is an attack on AI, there will be a defense shield that will evaluate the request and see if there is anything fishy happening. I think the focus will still be on social engineering and on humans, because that's much harder to defend against. There's a vast variety of human behavior that can be attacked. So whilst I'm not underestimating that vector, I think the focus on humans will still be there and maybe still prevail. But that's my personal opinion.
All right. We have another question from Roman. What is the main challenge for AI agents to have a long-term memory? Feel free to explain it like you would be talking to a 6-year-old. Well, that sounds like a prompt for ChatGPT. And in fact, you can probably ask that as well. From just speaking of the challenges we've experienced, it has less to do with memorizing a lot of information, but more about recall and contextual recall. So we as humans are quite good at memorizing things that then we can call up when we need them. So when we memorize, let's say, a particular smell, we might not smell that thing for a year, but then suddenly we smell it and we have a bunch of memories come together with that smell of the pistachio croissant that we really enjoy. So giving the AI the right routes and ways of recalling the right information at the right time is really difficult, especially when you're dealing with things like an equivalent of Siri on your phone, where she might have endless amounts of data on you, but actually retrieving the correct data point, it will be very difficult. Dalibor, do you have anything to sort of add in terms of long-term memory and maybe even how you're working with memory?
Yeah, I think memory is something, if we call this a memory, we've got, for example, ability to see the conversation with the customers, even when we had this with human agents. So this is absolutely available currently for any customer support. And I think the benefit of AI having access to that, as let's say opposed to human agents, is the speed with which these can be processed. So if you imagine customer calls and that refers to a previous conversation, that human agent needs to really either get summarization of the conversation or go through that, whereas AI would have this in a millisecond and would be able to refer to points of conversation. So maybe this is not quite the memory that we are talking about, but it's really a track of what happened in the past, and therefore very beneficial for the customers if the AI already knows and can refer to it. I think I can see big advantages of being able to work with that. Obviously, with the overhead of storing all this and with all the requirements for auditing and personal information that needs to be followed, of course. Yes.
Yeah. All right. We're coming up on the close, but we have a couple more questions here. What do you think are the most common AI missteps in banking that can lead to either fines or even loss of trust from customers? And so, obviously, I'm not an expert in banking law, nor a regulator, but I think one massive problem could be exposing other customers' data to a customer that the data doesn't belong to. So let's say you're like, oh, I heard that Dalibor spent, 100 euros on his lunch today. Did you also want to spend that much or whatever? It could cause problems. This is of course a funny example, but you really need to be careful about, you, Dalibor, are also dealing with a lot of customer data and where they're traveling, what they're doing. So you probably don't want to tell others, where Dalibor is going for the weekend. So I think that's one of the biggest things, data privacy. And the other thing is, not testing it enough to see if it's not giving you just bad outputs. Of course, you can always have hallucinations, as people are calling them, even today, even with a lot of safeguards, but they're significantly less than they were 2 years ago. But you really want to test and really play around with what you have built before you deploy it into the broader market. Dalibor, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, that was spot on. I think that I would leave it there. I think that's a really precise answer.
Thank you. So we have come up on the close of today's 1 hour. I'd like to thank you, Dalibor, for joining me today. We'll note the questions that you have asked in here, so that we can then answer them individually beyond this presentation, because I'm very conscious of people's time. But if there's anything in particular that you're interested in, or anything that you've heard, or anything where you want to correct me and say, oh, Marcel, you weren't right in this. And I completely understand, because there are so many new things changing. I'm almost afraid to open Twitter and my newsletters to see what's happened in the world of AI. So I'm happy to be sort of further educated and taught where things have even moved faster than I think they have. But thank you everyone for coming today. It's been really fun, and hopefully you will now take this and apply it within your business in at least some minor measure. At least realize that we are in a chaotic world and things will be shifting fast.
It was my pleasure as well. Thank you, Marcel, for inviting me, and it was really enlightening presentation from yourself.
Thank you, Dalibor, and thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.